I think it makes sense for the Senate. I also think it makes sense for the country, and that's what I intend to support.
Leader McConnell, would you support a clean CR without Ukraine funding?
It was a tribute not only to Patty and me, but to Susan Collins and Mitch McConnell and the other Republicans as well. And that strong bipartisan vote says the Senate will now move forward, adopt the motion to proceed tomorrow, absent an agreement to do it sooner, and keep the government open. Unfortunately, that is not happening in the House. Republicans appear to be taking the opposite path, a path headed to shutdown. The truth is, every approach House Republicans are pushing are partisan. Every CR has been aimed at the extreme hard right. Every path they have pursued to date will inevitably lead to a shutdown. Now, Speaker McCarthy wants to move a partisan CR that has no chance of becoming law. Why? Is he trying to help the country, or is he simply trying to appease the 30 most extreme members of his caucus? Because the same MAGA Republicans that the Speaker seeks to satisfy, the same members who seem happy to shut down the government, have already rejected his plan to avoid one. This is not an impossible puzzle to solve. The solution remains clear. Speaker McCarthy needs to stop letting the MAGA radicals drive his decisions and do the obvious and sensible thing. Follow the Senate's lead and pass a bipartisan CR to prevent this reckless shutdown. We hope he will come to his senses and emulate what we are doing. Bipartisan, bipartisan, bipartisan. It's the only way to avoid a shutdown. If MAGA Republicans get their way, the dangers for this country will be great. Extremism will dominate. The ultra-wealthy will be empowered. Working families will suffer. And women's health care will be even more curtailed. We in the Senate don't want to go down that troubling road. The Speaker should resist the 30 or so Republicans who want to drag us in that direction, and he can do it by giving bipartisanship a chance just as we are doing in the Senate. Senator Murray.
Thank you. I have been working around the clock with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, along with my leader, to put together a serious, straightforward, and bipartisan continuing resolution. Because, as I've been saying, there is absolutely no reason for a shutdown. And we showed that yesterday by voting overwhelmingly last night to move forward with this legislation. Let us be clear, this is a bipartisan bill that we wrote to make sure it could pass the Senate, pass the House, as long as it was brought up for a vote. And we wrote it so we could begin to address the urgent issues facing our country and avoid a reckless government shutdown while we work to pass our 12 bipartisan appropriations bills here in the Senate. This package addresses major bipartisan priorities so Congress can continue support for disaster relief efforts and for our allies in Ukraine. It will prevent a pay cut for our heroic wildland firefighters. It will avoid chaos and furloughs for air traffic controllers and community health centers and more. This is a meticulously negotiated bipartisan bill that can be signed into law as soon as it's passed. And if any senator or extremists in the House wants to force a shutdown, make no mistake, working Americans will pay the price. And by the way, a shutdown will be far more costly than simply keeping the government open. Not only would a shutdown be devastating for our economy and jeopardize our credit, it will also cut off paychecks for our military, for our border officials who are stopping fentanyl, our firefighters, and so many other public servants who are counting on that paycheck that they earned to make ends meet, not to mention the millions of contractors who work with government agencies as well. A needless shutdown would cut off parents and kids from childcare they rely on through Head Start, patients from NIH trials and community health centers, small businesses, farmers from loans they need to get by, and that's just the tip of an iceberg. So let's be clear, the most expensive outcome here is a government shutdown. Now, I get there are still a few senators who don't care for what's in this bill. You can never make anyone happy, but there is no reason for any senator to weaponize Senate procedures and force a totally unnecessary shutdown. And there is no reason for the House to not take up this bill either. If you don't like the bill, vote no. Every single one of us has been in that position before. But do not force the entire country into a shutdown that will cost billions of dollars, undermine our economy, undermine our national security, and hurt families just because you disagree with the vast majority of your colleagues. That is not a serious way to govern. It is not responsible. You know who's rooting for a United States government shutdown right now? Putin and the Chinese Communist Party. It is time for every member of Congress to step up and show some leadership. There is no reason we should not be able to pass this bill and avert a government shutdown. None. So let's get it done. Thank you very much.
No. Okay, I just want to say a word about the Menendez indictment before I take questions. Like you, I was just deeply disappointed, disturbed when I read the indictment. Look, I've known Senator Menendez a very long time, and it was truly, truly upsetting. But we all know that for senators, there's a much, much higher standard. And clearly, when you read the indictment, Senator Menendez fell way, way below that standard. Tomorrow, he will address the Democratic caucus, and we'll see what happens after that.
Leader Schumer, should he step aside? Should he resign?
As I said, tomorrow he will address our caucus, and we'll see what will happen after that.
On the government
funding bill, you got 77 votes for this bill here.
Would have been 80 with everyone there.
Okay. High vote total. That said, it's obvious that the House can't accommodate this bill. Now, that's a high vote total here. Should you guys continue down that path if this is not going to become law? I mean, Senator Tillis suggested as much.
Look, the bottom line is if they put our bill on the floor, it would pass. It would pass. And so we just hope that Senator McCarthy understands, learns from the Senate example, that you can't do this in a partisan way. We're waiting for a bipartisan approach to come from from Speaker McCarthy. If he doesn't come with a bipartisan approach, if he continues the partisanship, he's going to cause a shutdown. He knows that. Yes.
Mr. Schumer, to get this CR through the Senate, are you willing to negotiate an amendment on border security or adding language on border security?
Look, I'm not going to speculate on any specific amendment. All I can say is everything to keep this going in the good way it's been done, everything has to be done bipartisan. Everything. Yes.
Mr. Leader, have you talked at all to Mr. Jeffries about a discharge petition or something they can send over to you?
I've talked to Leader Jeffries 2 or 3 times a day, and we're figuring out the best strategy to get the House to behave in a bipartisan manner. No, last question. Last question.
How do you feel about Speaker McCarthy's criticism that the Senate has not moved on any of its appropriation bills in terms of passing?
He ought to be focusing on the CR and not shutting down the government, instead of just playing complete obeisance to the hard right in a partisan way that will lead to a shutdown.